Thank you so much for your interest in living in an apartment area this year at the University of Indianapolis. Today, we will be going over some very important information about the new apartment that you will be living in if you choose to sign a lease with us. The information you'll see before you today is our new resident apartment information session. It is vital that you pay attention to the information presented here, as many of your questions that you have about when you can sign up for an apartment, how you'll do it, where you'll find that information is going to be answered here. Also, just to let you know, we will have a very nice video prepared for you for how to sign your lease. And in that video, we will explain what the lease is and important information that you need to know in the lease before you make a decision about signing an agreement to live in an apartment with us. So let's jump right into this information. Before we begin, though, I do need you to know if you have an outstanding balance with the accounting office, you will not be able to sign a lease with us. Please visit the accounting office or your e-bill to be sure you are eligible. This is super important. Another thing to keep in mind is we will go over the cost of living in all of the apartment areas. So something you should really consider before you sign a lease with us is checking with financial aid. I know that a lot of you have scholarships, a lot of you have financial aid, some of you have loans that you've taken out, and you want to make sure that the loan amount that you have or the financial aid or the scholarship will cover the amount of you living here. And if it does not, finding out how much out of pocket you will have to pay to stay here. No one wants you to get into an agreement and have a financial obligation that is completely out of the ballpark in a way that you wouldn't be able to afford staying here. So please keep that in mind. Make sure you check with the accounting office before you try to sign a lease, as again, if you have an outstanding balance, you will not be able to complete a lease with us. So let's jump in. What should you know about living in an apartment area? First thing first, you need to read the lease. And again, we will have a video for you. So after you finish watching this video, you should jump right into watching the lease video so that you can understand the information in the leasing agreement and make sure you just have your questions answered about what you can expect. So watch the lease video, right? You'll get a copy of the lease in your email, so you will have an opportunity to read it in its entirety. However, if you want to know some of the major components of that lease agreement and how to fill it out, you'll need to watch that lease information video. First things first, to live in GV. I know many of you really love GV, which is Greyhound Village. You have to be 20 years old by January 15th, 2022. So if you will not be 20 years old by January 15th of 2022, then you will not be able to live in GV. That means that your next options are University Lofts or College Crossing. Don't get discouraged. Your time will come if you do not meet that birthday deadline, but the other two properties are equally as great, and I'm sure you'll find the community that works best for you. Another important point is our leases are 1 year long. You lease an apartment from August 15th, 2021 until July 31st, 2022. This is extremely important to note because many of you ask, hey, if I want to stay in my apartment over Thanksgiving or winter break, do I have to move out and move back in or anything like that? No, you do not. Your rent amount or your agreement amount covers the entire time of your lease agreement. So when you sign that lease and you move in August 15th, you do not have to move out of that unit until July 31st of 2022 unless you decide that you want to A, move to a new building, or B, you decide to re-sign for your same room. And when we say re-sign, we just mean for the next year, which would be the 2023 year. Isn't that crazy? 2023 year, you want to stay in the exact same apartment, so you'll sign a new lease for the new year. Otherwise, you'll be moving out on the 31st of July from 2022. Here's something that a lot of people don't know is that unlike the residence halls, we do not allow cancellations, right? So once you sign the lease, you are in a legal binding contract between yourself and the university. Just like if you were to go and move off campus and sign a lease with the regular apartment community, once you sign that agreement, you were in that agreement. One thing, however, that is not covered in your lease agreement that we can tell you about is an appeals process. So once you finish viewing this video, you really want to go look at that lease video because I'll be explaining to you in full detail about what that appeal process is. But keep in mind, appeals are not approved for every single person, and you must meet qualifications to be approved for an appeal. So if you don't, then you know already that there is no cancellation for that. Additionally, as I mentioned before, you really want to check with financial aid first before agreeing to sign a lease because you want to make sure that you have the money that you need to be able to live in the space and to live there comfortably. Next are utilities and damages. This is my favorite part. Your rent amount covers your utilities. I know a lot of you all show your lease and information to your parents and they're like, oh man, you got to pay this rent and you have to pay for these utilities. You do not. Utilities are included, and that includes your cable, electricity, water, sewer, trash removal, right? Those things are included in your rent amount. And we will go over what that looks like in the lease component, the lease video. Next are damages. You are responsible for damages in your apartment. I know that sounds like, oh my God, really? But yes, you are. So if you are found responsible for damaging something in your unit, you will be charged on your student account for whatever amount that is. And when we look at the lease agreement, we will be able to see a few examples of what things are costing for replacing. So long story short, make sure you are taking care of your unit, right? Don't be overly destructive. Don't be overly obnoxious with hanging things up and no command strips, those type of things. You just really want to make sure that you are taking care of your unit because at the end of the day, you'll have to pay for it if you mess things up, right? Currently, our visitation policy is no visitors. That is the expectation around the entire campus right now. As you know, with COVID being how it is, we are limiting the amount of traffic that's going through any of the buildings. So that's no visitors in Greyhound Village, College Crossing, or University Lofts. However, if you live in that building, you can visit other people in that building. So if I'm a resident of Greyhound Village, I can visit a resident on the 4th floor or the 3rd floor or whatever in Greyhound Village. I cannot, however, leave Greyhound Village and go over to University Lofts and visit someone there currently. Once our COVID policies are relaxed and we are operating as normally as possible, visitation will resume as normal. You will be able to have guests over. You will be able to be guests in other people's buildings. But you will have to escort your guests. Keep that in mind. Just like the residence halls, we do expect you to meet your guests at the front door. Make sure that you are with them and escorting them through the hall to your room or to wherever you all are going when we resume allowing you all to have that. I know some of you all's favorite information here is that alcohol is allowed in the apartments if you are of age, and of age in Indiana is 21. So if you are 21 years old, you can have alcohol in your apartment, but it is only confined to your apartment. Please do not walk in the lobby and bring alcohol out into the lobby. Don't bring it outside in front of the building. No brown paper bags out in the parking lot. You want to keep your alcohol confined to your space. This also means that if you have a roommate that is under 21, you should not be supplying alcohol to them. If you have friends, when we relax the visitation policy, come to your space, you should not be providing any alcohol to anyone under 21. And you should be taking precaution when drinking the alcohol, right? Like you should not be getting obnoxious inebriated coming into the hallways, destroying things and things like that. We expect you to be reasonable and responsible with that privilege. Another thing to note is that your mailbox is in your building. I know this makes a lot of people excited because you don't want to have to walk all the way over to Switzer to get your mail, and you will not. When you sign an agreement, you get a copy of the lease agreement that you sign. But in addition to that, when we are welcoming everyone to the building for the new year, we send out what's called an apartment student handbook. In that student handbook, we break down how you need to fill out if you're sending mail or receiving mail, what you need to put on there so that you can get your mail. In the lease agreement, we will also talk about what package acceptance looks like and how we operate over in the apartment areas. But in layman's terms, you get your own mailbox. Well, you and your roommates get a mailbox in the building, and your packages get to come to your building. My favorite component, your apartment is fully furnished. By fully furnished, I mean that in your living room, you get a couch and a love seat, you get coffee table, you get an end table, you have a full freezer and refrigerator, a full stove or microwave. In your bedroom, you have an extra long full bed. You can get those sheets ordered online, but a queen size sheet will fit on that bed, but you'll need a mattress pad because it'll be a little big. So if you get a mattress pad, it'll fit comfortably. You also get a desk and a chair in your bedroom. So keep that in mind. You just need to come with your essentials, right? Like you want to make sure you get a shower curtain with the hooks because the hooks are not on those rods. So make sure you get the hooks. You may want to get some lamps. If you live in university lofts, for sure, you will need lamps as we do not have any overhead ceiling lights in the living room or in your bedroom. So you will need some lamps around your apartment. Last but not least, you do not need a meal plan to live in the apartment areas. This is very different than the residence halls, as if you live in a residence hall, you do have to have a meal plan. If you live in an apartment, you do not, because you have a full kitchen with cabinets and everything, so you can do some cooking. Cooking, not burning, cooking, so that we can clarify. Next, you should know, here are the big deals, right? You are still in a university apartment, even in College Crossing, right? I know that walk can be long for some people, but you are still in a university apartment. So you still are responsible for following the expectations in the Student Code of Conduct, which you can find online. If you search on the UND website, Student Code of Conduct, you also are responsible for upholding the policies in the apartment handbook. Again, you'll get a copy of the apartment handbook, and the rules and regulations are very similar to those that you find across campus, right? The only expectation that is different is that we allow drinking in the apartment if you're of age. Some things to note that we do not tolerate, and I know a lot of you all think, oh, I'm going to the apartments areas, things are just going to be lackadaisy. It's not. We still have apartment community assistants that operate in the space, who do community walks, who do programming. We do fun events and things like that, but we also expect our apartment community assistants to uphold the expectations of the handbooks, right? So if you are breaking policy in the apartment areas, you will still go through the conduct process like you would anywhere else across campus. So keep that in mind. So some things we absolutely do not tolerate: underage drinking. Don't let that happen. Animals, unless they're approved by disability services. Keep that in mind. I know a lot of you are probably seeing animals across campus. You have to go through disability services to be approved to have either an ESA, an emotional support animal, or a service animal approved in your unit. Another part of that process is making sure that if you are living with other people, they will also have to agree that your animal can be in that space. If we find animals in your unit and we don't have an approval for you on file, we will ask that that animal be removed between 24 and 48 hours. You can also be fined if that animal stays past our deadline for when it needs to be removed, unless you get approval from disability services. But until you have that approval, the animal cannot be in your space. Weapons, no can do. So no weapons. That does not include like your cooking knives and things that you keep in the kitchen. We're talking about firearms, explosives, those type of things, which will also be covered in your lease agreement. Smoking, there is no smoking in any of the units. This includes vape pens and this includes hookah. If our maintenance teams who come in and do inspections, which we'll talk about in the lease, come in and notice a heavy smoking smell or can detect that smoking is happening in the unit, there is a $200 to $250 cleaning fee associated with having to clean the unit after someone has smoked in it. So you really don't want to be that person that gets stuck with that hefty cleaning bill because you thought that it was okay for you to be smoking. No drugs allowed. I think that's a very obvious one. So no marijuana smoking, any type of things like that will have you go through the conduct process. And the conduct process does not change because you live in an apartment area. And finally, disruptive behavior. And I think, a lot of you think, oh, the apartments, you can have parties, this like that. No, you should not be throwing parties in your apartment area. Get-togethers and gatherings are fine when we are back to normal operations, not during COVID. We have an expectation that with COVID, you are not having more than 5 to 6 people in your unit at a time, which is already quite a lot, but we want to make sure that you can follow the guidelines of safety, meaning you can socially distance and people are wearing masks. Another thing to keep in mind is that if you are violating that policy, you will go through the conduct process. And when we say 5 to 6 people, we mean 5 to 6 people who are currently living in your building. As of right now, until further notice, we are not allowing you to have outside guests, meaning other people from campus who do not live in your building or people who are guests in general and not residents or students of the University of Indianapolis. So I know you want to know when you are able to sign a lease. If you are a current resident, these dates are virtual, meaning we will not be doing in-person leasing this year. And I know that is new for you, but the reason we are doing this for our returners only, meaning people who are currently living spaces, is that it will cut down how many interactions we have to have and to keep you all safe. So the first phase of re-sign begins Monday, November 9th, and will go until November 15th. Please, please, please check your email. When this process opens up, you will be notified via email. Reminders will be sent on Monday, and from in Corey's email, these videos will be in that email. So if you haven't had a chance to watch the leasing video, and for friends who want to sign leases, if they haven't watched this video and haven't watched the leasing video, they'll get a reminder that they need to do so. So you want to make sure that you are letting them know to check their emails as well, right? And so the next phase is current resident roommate pull-in. That means that if you live in a unit and you have open spaces in your unit and you have friends who want to live in that apartment with you, this is their time to sign a lease in your unit. And this is considered phase 2. So that will start November 16th and go until November 22nd. And we'll explain the difference in the prices too, because that's in this presentation for you. Keep in mind, those dates are virtual dates. We will not be in person for those dates. So checking your email is crucial. Next, we will have in-person dates. Your very first in-person session will be on November 23rd, 2020, which is transfer day. Transfer day is only for current residents. A transfer means that you are wanting to move from one unit in your apartment area to another unit in your apartment area. So in University Lofts, that would be like, oh, I wanted to move from 204 West to 206 West, or 204 East to 203 East, moving within the unit. That is the first in-person date. The rest of these dates, as you can see, are next semester after fall break, and they are broken down by grade levels. So senior grad, junior senior grad, they are also broken up by building type the further we go along. So as you can see, junior senior grad for GV only is on January 21st, 2020. However, junior senior grad for College Crossing and University Lofts is on January 22nd, 2021. So we will be sending this information out. This information will be posted on the monitors across campus. There will also be a banner hanging in Switzer. So this information will definitely be accessible to you. So you want to make sure that you're checking and saving dates on your calendar and information like that. So when this applies to you, you will come and sign. And keep in mind that you need to fall within the categories that are listed here. And these dates are only for new leases. Let me clarify. Everyone else, meaning people who are currently staying in their rooms or pulling people in, would have signed a lease during the virtual dates that were provided. So you want to make sure that you sign your lease at the appropriate time. Now, once we've passed the grade level signing, we have what's called all qualifying dates. This means that anyone who qualifies to sign a lease, maybe you missed grad senior junior day or sophomore day or whatever day, but you still qualify to sign a lease in one of our apartment areas, we're offering two specific dates for that to happen. The first one is on January 29th, and then the next one is on February 1st. We will be in the Switzer basement for the majority of the entire day and kind of allowing you all to roll in as you can and get your leases signed. So keep in mind, if you miss one of those days, you still have an opportunity to sign a lease. One note about our leases is that they are first come, first serve when you enter that qualifying day, when you enter any day rather. So the earlier you sign up, the better it is you get the apartment that you are looking for. That also applies to once we do these in-person dates. Whoever shows up on those dates, we go down the line and get people in to pick their spot and sign their lease. We do not hold apartments for anyone, so you have to get there and sign for those spaces if you want a good space. Finally, the most important part that everyone wants to know, how much will you pay? In Greyhound Village, if you are a current resident who wants to re-sign for your space and you sign in phase one, you will pay $955 a month or $5,730 for a one-bedroom in phase one. If we enter phase two and you sign, so let's say, oh, you didn't sign for the apartment in phase one, now you're in phase two, it'll be $975, and then after that it'll be $990. So this is any day after 11/23 turns into phase three. So anybody signing after 11/23 will always be in phase three, and so forth. So a 2-bedroom will be $755, $765, $775. There's only a small difference in the prices, but keep in mind the incentive is that if you're a current resident and you know for a fact that you want to keep your unit, signing earlier will help you do that. So I'll just hold the screen here for a few seconds so you can see those prices. I don't want to repeat it all over to you because the same information will be in the lease agreement. So no matter if you're signing a Greyhound Village lease, a College Crossing lease, or University Lofts lease, the cost will be in the lease agreement. So you'll know what you're paying. Same for University Lofts and College Crossing. As you can see here, the price differences are only just a few bucks depending on which phase you are signing in. So you want to make note and be hasty about getting to a leasing event if you're a new person, or being very clear about signing in during those virtual days if you're a current resident to get your lease signed in a timely manner. So that includes our information session about the apartment areas. Again, we wanted you to have this information so you kind of had an idea about what you were signing up for. Again, please go watch the lease video as we will be breaking that lease down into the finest layman's terms you can find. We won't be going section by section through the entire lease, but some of those major components that we need to hit on, we will be covering. And that includes our video for the new resident apartment information. If you have questions and need to talk to anyone, please reach out to Kyle Johnson if you are looking for Greyhound Village information, myself, Sarah Porter Liddell, if you're looking for University Lofts information, and Ayla Wilder if you're looking for College Crossing information. We are all working to make sure that you get the best assistance that you can and that this process is flawless for you. Have a great day and let us know if you have questions.